Are you worried that you talk too much with your dog, or people have already told you that you do that, but it's really hard not to? What if this wasn't actually a bad thing? Today we're going to talk about talking to our dogs, if this is a bad thing or not, and if so, when. And we start with the positive aspects of talking to our dogs. We as humans are very vocal and very voice-oriented with our languages and stuff. So it often helps us to talk. For example, if we have a situation that is a little bit tense and we notice ourselves tensing up, it might help to just talk and talk in a relaxed way. All right? And with our mood transfer between dogs and humans, we can actually help the dog relax with that as well. Especially if we always use the same phrase. Like, for example, if we walk out the door and we see a neighbor coming and the neighbor's wearing a different hat or something like that, and the dog is starting to look at the neighbor a little bit concerned, and we just say, "Oh, that's just the neighbor." That might be enough for a dog to realize, oh, mom's relaxed, okay, then it's not a big deal. Especially when the dog has made the experience that every time we say, "Oh, that's just a neighbor," good things happen, right? We can connect that with relaxation. We can connect that with even a reward. It's completely up to us, and it can help our dogs. Same thing when we talk at home. Like, if we have a dog who is a little bit fearful of us and not quite sure yet if he or she can trust us, right? If we talk in a nice and calm way and use our voice to just express relaxation, it can help the dog to assess us and to realize that we are actually the good guys, right? So, yes, us talking to our dogs can actually help our dogs in specific situations. It becomes a problem if we are not clear when we want something specifically from our dogs. Like if we want the dog to start a search game and we want to cue our dogs to start, then it wouldn't help if we say something completely different every single time. Or if one word has different meanings, right? That's very often the case with the name. For me, the dog's name means look at me. The dog doesn't have to come to me, just look at me. But for many people, it's a variety of things. The name is used for scolding the dog. The name is used for getting the dog's attention. The name is used for calling the dog back. And this is confusing. Same thing if we use different words for the same thing. Like if we want to recall our dogs and we don't just use one word that has been trained really well. We use come, Fifi, come here, come back, come to me, now, whatever. This is a very different thing, and the dog is not very likely to respond to every single one of those. Some dogs guess, and they guess right, but it's kind of a gamble, right? And if we want something specific, we don't want to gamble, we want it done, all right? So we have to be clear about it. What also doesn't help is if the dog is just in his or her own world and cannot listen at the moment, but we humans constantly talk to them and constantly address them and want something from them. It's like if you're working on a computer and somebody comes to you and constantly says your name, and for the dog, it's the same thing. The dog is sniffing and not able to pay attention, and he constantly hears bellow, 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 bellow. This is not something that will make you more interesting for your dog. It just tells the dog that when you say this word, his name, it doesn't have any meaning at all, and he can just ignore it. Now, there is one exception to the clarity rule. And that is, if I'm not 100% sure that my dog will follow whatever I say, and I do not want to poison my cue. So whenever I ask my dog to do something, I want 100%, right? I want my dog to really know that this word means this action every single time. But there are situations where I can't be 100% sure. Like if I have a sensitive dog, the ground is wet, and I would really like a sit, but I'm not quite sure if the dog would sit if I ask. Then I would not use my regular cue, because if it doesn't work, it poisons the cue. I would say something like, "Can you sit?" And if the dog doesn't, well, it's no big deal. My cue is still intact, and I know that my dog is not comfortable in this environment to sit down, which is fine. All right, our dogs can tell us that they are not comfortable with whatever we ask of them. And for the next time, I know, right? So there are pros and cons to this. And whenever you get the feeling that some things just don't work, look at how you're giving your signal, your cue, how the dog is feeling about it, so watch the body language, and in what situation you're in. So is what you're asking from your dog possible for your dog or not? And all those things can tell you if what you're doing works or not. All right? And if it doesn't work, you need to change them. But it does not mean that talking to your dog is necessarily bad. All right? And there are some things that we actually can only tell our dogs, right? Why don't you tell me in the comments what that is for you and your dog? I love those. It's always fun. For me, it's especially how I feel about people telling me what methods they have used before. I don't blame anybody when somebody tells me that they have used a prong collar, shock collar, whatever, but it makes me feel a specific way, and that I tell my dog, because I do not believe in the blame game. People usually already feel bad when they tell me, so it's not my place to judge. But I tell my dogs. I tell my dogs what I think about the trainers they have gotten those tools from and all those things. And if you want to know how you can be a little bit more precise even with your signals and cues, watch this video.